I launched and then ran something at the Washington Post called Wonk Blog. And Wonk Blog was a, very proud of Wonk Blog. Wonk Blog was a vertical. There's a part of the site. We had between 3 and 5 other writers on it, depending on when you're looking. And it was just about covering policy, right? That's all we did. We read the backs of Congressional Budget Office reports, the appendices, we read the climate documents, we did, we really went deep into the policy. And so you always had this question there, how do you get people to read this stuff? And the obvious first answer, the leverage point, a journalist will spend forever on a story, months, a year. And it's like, and then the headline. It's like, yeah, the editor will take care of that. In a lot of newspapers, the writer is not even allowed to have input on the headline. That's typically the rule at the New York Times. A writer cannot be part of the headline process. So the part of your story, the words that are most important to whether anybody ever reads it, get the least attention. It's the last thing done. Everybody just wants to get the story in the paper or the magazine or up on the site. No attention. But the headline is like all that matters. So back in the magazine days, and you all see this, like all the headlines were puns, like all headlines were like raising the bar if it was about the Supreme Court or something, because it was lazy. So at Wonk Blog, I instituted this thing called the focus group. So for every headline, you had to come up with 10 headline variants. And then we would, in our little internal chat room, vote on the best one. And this made our headlines much better. It forced a kind of work to go into them. Then you could get at least some feedback on whether or not they were good. And this is great at Wonk Blog, right? Because it was all about policy, and we were just trying to get people to read the policy. And we did. We were the highest traffic part of the Post at that time. Then I launched a place called Vox, and I brought the same headlining approach to Vox. Vox was general interest, and it was also much bigger. So now your headline is being voted on by 30 people, by 10 people, by 15 people. Before at any given moment, 2 other people were seeing it. And over time, I noticed that on the one hand, it was still working to give us these great headlines. It was bringing in a lot of traffic. But it was cranking every headline up to 11. In any given focus group, completely rationally, everybody would vote for the most appealing headline. And the most appealing headline was one that delivered the strongest shot of emotion right into the arm. And that was great for that story individually. Spread out across the site, spread out across years, it turned the intensity level too high. And it exhausts the audience. And this was happening throughout the media. I didn't make up the headline focus group. It actually came from a site called Upworthy, which famously would make you do 25 or 30. These were these and invented what gets called the curiosity gap headline. It's like, this woman bought a cat and you'll never guess what happened next. It's like a lot of that.
The cat died, by the way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Downworthy.
Yeah.
But it makes me think of what you're talking about there a bit, which is you have these dynamics that emerge that are individually rational and collectively irrational, and this is particularly true when you don't have this institutional authority, these institutional distribution mechanisms. When everybody and every institution is in a hyper-competitive market, every writer competing with every writer, every institution with every institution, you never really have guaranteed audience. And even if you do have guaranteed audience, you actually know how you're doing vis-a-vis all your colleagues, right? Back in the day, when the New York Times opinion page was out a page, I wasn't on it then, but I didn't know if more people were reading Ross Douthat or me, but now I do. And I want it to be me. And so that's this pressure to kind of keep turning up the dial, right? Outcompete everybody, but then as an industry, the dial is always, it's like broken at 11. And then it's exhausting on the audience. And we're polarizing people. Like it's an endless thing, the headline, that the story is more nuanced than the headline, but people share the headline, they screenshot it, whatever.